Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here and welcome back to another video. So today, I couldn't be more excited to share today's video with you. Today, I've interviewed someone, a client of ours, who has done what I thought was absolutely impossible. Daniel is in the e-commerce space, and in the last 3 years, he scaled his agency to 7 figures without ads, without cold outreach, without SOPs, without cold calling, without cold emailing. He's done no outreach, he's booked no cold appointments or no warm appointments, and yet he's been able to scale his agency to 7 figures with huge high-ticket e-commerce clients. And I was like baffled because Daniel joined us about 2 weeks ago for the program. This is not a client interview to show off his success with our program, although we'll probably have one of those in the future. This is just me trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Because I was baffled by this, and I spoke with Daniel and I was like, hey man, do you mind if we hop on a call just so I can figure out what on earth is going on? And then it occurred to me, I was like, hey, can we record this? Because, I could upload this to the channel. And honestly, this is one of the most, one of the coolest interviews I've ever done with, all people that I've spoken to in the agency space. I don't know anyone out of I've spoken to over 600 agency owners on sales calls. I know hundreds more through my network, and nobody has been able to do what Daniel's done. And so I had the absolute privilege of talking to him, and I couldn't be more excited. So a couple of points. First of all, Zoom fucked up the recording, or I think I fucked it up. So it's only Daniel's face and video on the recording. Daniel, if you're watching this, I do apologize for that, but all the focus will be on you, as it should be, considering I was just asking the questions. Second of all, Daniel is actually hiring account managers / sales reps for high ticket e-commerce deals. So if you're watching this and you've got experience in e-com and you've got experience in sales and account management, and you like the idea of working for a fucking awesome agency as far as I'm concerned, then you can DM Daniel on Instagram. And what I'm going to do is drop his Instagram handle in the first line of the description. So yeah, Daniel's looking for talented account managers for his agency. If I was getting started, this is what I would do. I would go to someone who's already done what I want to do and learn from them. And honestly, I would happily work for Daniel if I was starting out. So yeah, go ahead. I'm not even starting out, just depends how far you are along. So go ahead, that Instagram handle will be in the description below. Drop Daniel a message or a DM on Instagram, and you might have the opportunity of a lifetime to work in a huge agency, working with massive e-com clients, doing some of them spend over 7 figures a year in ad spend, and that's a lot to learn in the e-com space. So that's everything from me. I will cut the clip in now, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Okay, hey everyone, Charlie Morgan here, and welcome back to another video. So today's a bit of a different one, completely different style to usual. Today I am going to be interviewing a client of ours, but not from the perspective of the amount of success in terms of new monthly revenue or clients we've been able to help them get. But today I'm going to be talking to Daniel, who basically has scaled an e-commerce agency to a 7-figure run rate without any outreach. Now, Daniel is a client of ours. He joined us about a week ago. Ironically, he actually came from the YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel. And when he came on board, we pretty quickly realized this dude's done what most people consider impossible. He scaled an agency beyond multi-6 figures to 7 figures with literally no outreach. Correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but you've got until you're obviously working with us now to get this sorted, but you haven't done any cold email, no cold messaging, no cold calling, maybe a little bit here and there, but you never tried to do that consistently, right?
Zero.
Yeah.
And no ads either.
So there's obviously, no ads. So obviously something's going on here. And today I want to sort of get to the bottom of it to hopefully add some value to you guys. And Daniel's been kind enough to take some time out of his busy schedule to have a chat with me to explore this. So Daniel, why don't we just start by you just maybe introducing yourself quickly and just explaining a bit about yourself and your agency and who you serve?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Daniel. I run an agency called Class A Media. We focus on launching and scaling direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands. We are 3 years old at this point, and what we focus on is email, SMS, paid media, website development, and branding. Sounds like a mouthful of things that we offer, but the biggest takeaway now is we don't offer probably 60% of those services anymore, just because we're super laser focused. But that's the gist of what we've or where we've been up to this point. As Charlie said, oddly enough, we have close to a 95% retention, which basically means no one leaves us. I don't know why, uh,
You just got
but
the
you know,
glue. Yeah.
yeah, for me, the biggest thing is process, um, quality,
Mm.
and ensuring that the client knows what's happening, right? In the e-commerce space, things move so quickly. A person will have a bad month, right? It's just the name of the game. That's what happens. A person has a bad month. Um, and, our sort of core here is when we notice someone's having a bad month or a bad week or whatever it is from a performance perspective, we
Mm.
really kick up our efforts in terms of customer relationship and ensuring that they know exactly what's going on and they know that we're working on a solution. So that's probably, I would say one of the biggest reasons why we've retained all these clients.
It's amazing because a 95% retention rate, that's like we've served over 150 agencies. I've probably talked to over 600 at this point, whether it's sales calls or network, and I don't think I've ever found someone who's got like such a high retention rate. So
Yeah,
hats
it's
off to
weird.
you, man. Like whatever you've done is unbelievable. And I promise for everyone listening to this now and watching the video, there's no magic 997 course that we're sending you to at the end of this. There's no webinar to be found. We really are just going to have a chat, and I want to sort of dive into how Daniel's done this. And Daniel, you don't have to reveal everything because I'm sure you've got your competitive advantages. But I
No,
want to
no,
sort of
I'm open. I'm open. I'm an
yeah.
open
So
book.
like what I want to do here is I want to sort of approach this from I've got a couple of notes, but I want to sort of approach this from a couple of different standpoints, like main points of conversation that we can cover. Um, First of all, I want to sort of talk about the structure of your agency.
Yeah,
So you mentioned earlier, 60% of your services you don't offer and you're laser focused. So I want to find out what you're focusing on and what you're selling, and really like sort of what you're offering and how that works. Then I also want to talk about the kind of clients that you work with, to see if like, is this retention because of the quality of the client or is it also the quality of the service? Is it both? How do we account for that? And then
sure.
I also want to ask you a few things currently in the e-commerce space, like how are we dealing with iOS 14? How does all that work? But to begin with, so this is a 3-year-old agency. Most
Yeah,
people would take 5 to 10 years with no ads and no anything to scale to 7 figures. So let's take it back to day one. I want to sort of understand the story here, and feel free to take the floor for as long as you need. Walk
yeah,
me through what those early stages look like, why you started the agency, how you started it, and how everything has come to fruition, if you'd be so kind.
yeah, sure. So, pre-agency, I had a sunglasses brand. Um, that was a total flop.
Okay.
Um, you know, I was building that for around 2 to 3 years. An investor, and a really kind investor, and a patient investor, who really, was there to hold my hand throughout the process. But unfortunately, it didn't work. And it was an e-commerce sunglasses brand.
Right.
And I was really, down and about it. I didn't know, what I was going to do next. Um, that was like March 1st of 3 years ago. A few days later, I was getting married and I was unemployed.
Okay.
And I had $4,000 in my bank account.
That's stressful.
And
Jeez.
someone calls me and they say, hey Dan, I love what you did with that brand. It looked really cool because it was branded really well. Can you just give me advice? I'm looking to start a brand and I'm looking to, whatever. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. Give him advice, talk to him as a friend, because that's what friends do.
Mm-hmm.
About an hour later, I get a Venmo for like $1,500. I was like, that's weird. Why did you just Venmo me? I sent them the money back. I said, I don't need your money. And March 7th was my wedding day.
Right.
March 7th was the day that my LLC was formulated.
Okay.
So I hit the ground running that day.
Right.
I had no agency experience. I've never worked in an agency before, nor have I ever really worked for anyone before.
Mm-hmm.
So company structures and all that stuff, not my thing.
Yep.
So I really, really, really had to work very hard to understand how to structure things. When I first started, first biggest point of advice is don't do everything. But when I first started, I needed as much money as I can get. Manhattan rent is crazy, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, we were offering web development services, digital marketing, paid management services, as well as email. SMS wasn't so hot then, and branding, right? And all these things, the crazy load to carry. And I had no team. So I was a glorified freelancer.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you just said we were offering web development. So I was like, do you have a web developer as well? Or this was all you at that point?
So it was all me at this point. I sat and I figured out how to write Shopify liquid code. And
Okay.
I when I say, and I told this to you, I think I said a while back, in the best way possible, I am a psychopath. Like if I'm going to do something, I need to understand it.
Yeah.
And I always positioned, even if when it was just me, I always positioned it as we. Whenever I spoke to people, I always said we, because it's me and my LLC, right? It's not, you're not working with Daniel. So it was always a we thing for me. And I knew that it was going to end up there. Fast forward a few months, I ended up basically growing. I don't know what was happening, but just something was happening, right? I met one client, that client referred me to another client, which then referred me to another client. And it was a surreal experience because, you know, I was making at that time, you know, let's say 10K a month, right? And I was like 22 or something, or 23. And I was like, oh, great. You know, I cover my rent, go out for dinner a few times. I'm good to go. And I just coasted there. But then I realized that I was just burning out, stressed, and it was too much for me. And that was just at like 10K, right? And the reason why is because we were offering so many services. If I was just doing paid media management, then I could have easily managed up until 50K, 60K, no problem. And still, you know, I needed to build up. For me, I'm very into, I don't know if you ever read Profit First, but that book in itself is a very powerful book. But the one thing that I value is hard, cold cash. So I knew that I need to have X amount of dollars in the bank, in the business bank, before I could start cutting services. So I kept building up as much revenue as I possibly can from these jobs. Our retainers started out, let's say from paid management, started at $1,500 a month, right? Which is not much. A few months later, it went up to $2,500. A few months later, it went up to $3,500.
Just to cut in there, what allowed you to justify that increase in price?
Demand.
Right. Okay.
Demand, and to be honest, frustration. And when I say frustration, that means more or less I felt that my time was becoming more valuable because it was just me. And that in itself, you know, it's like a double-edged sword thing, right? Because it's like your time's becoming more valuable, but your ego is also growing, and you need to be really careful. So that was a very big, you know, mental shift for me, and that was actually really difficult, very difficult time for me to really, you know, delve into that and understand that. And you know, the website development projects went from $800 to 5,000 to then 7 to then 10 to then 15,000 to build out a website. And you know, some people think we're crazy, but we don't really offer that service anymore. But that's a huge chunk of revenue. And again, the reason why is because, and I'll explain as I go on, process is everything. So fast forward a year or so, you know, we were doing around 30K organic, which means basically word to mouth. We love working with Daniel. That's it. I then started losing time in terms of having a normal life.
Relate to that.
and I started looking for people to hire. And at that point, I thought that I could be, you know, the training king. You know, I could train anybody on how to do anything. So I hired inexperienced people, spent 3 months of my time training them. just for them to realize that, you know, it's not something that they're interested in.
Right.
So that's my lesson number 2 is you're not in the training business. It's definitely good to train people and to give people your process, but they must come in with some level of understanding of what exactly is going on. So like, you know, that was another mistake that I made. And I learned quickly that you need to hire quality.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to hire quality is if you raise your rates. And if you don't raise your rates, then you can't hire quality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something you need to be really careful about as well. I'm sure you've seen that too.
Yeah, you find people that sell, monthly retainers for $400, and they can only afford to pay media buyers that, are from,
Yeah.
that have no experience and charge like you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, so.
Yeah. So you have to be careful about that. And that's why in the beginning I was able to charge so little, because it was really just me. I was just floating myself, didn't have any issues. But as I started growing, things started to really change. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
This was around a year and a half later. COVID hit. If you look at like our Stripe account, it was the scariest shit in the world. It went from, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss. It went from,
You can cuss, man.
Sorry, it went from, it went from like whatever it was. I think it was like 25 or 30 to like 6K. Boom. March.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, no one left. Everyone just like
paused.
Let's just put this on pause because we have no clue what's going on right now.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So everyone has different spiritual beliefs. I'm a very spiritual person. And for me, I literally sat there. I told myself, this is a gift.
Right. Okay.
I said, this is a gift and this is going to work. I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to pop off and I feel it.
Yeah.
So that month where I made that, I don't want to say minuscule amount of money, because obviously like it's all relative, but the relative to, big 6K, I had to let go of everybody, obviously, because I was scared too. And when I say everybody, I'm talking 2 people. The team wasn't so big, but I had to just let them go.
What do you think was the source of that optimism? You have your worst month ever in a year and a half, and you're more optimistic than ever about the future. Where do you think that comes from?
So in general, as a just general note, I'm a really pessimistic person. I'm not really so optimistic.
Okay. Sure.
But I am obsessed with my company. Okay. And it's that high level of obsession that makes me not
fear anything.
Waver. And I don't fear
commitment.
I don't fear anything. Yeah. And also, to be honest, I am, again, this is not a religious conversation, but I'm a very big God's plan type of thing. Like this is what it has to be. Whatever it is, I'm doing my best. I'm trying as hard as I can. Yep. So what most people would do, in my opinion, is like twiddle their thumbs and wait for people to start resuming their contracts. I knew that wasn't going to be, I knew that wasn't certain. Someone could have told me, we can't do it anymore. Right. That was very possible. The next month I could have made even less. You never know. What I did in that month was I took some time to understand my goals, because I never actually did that. A lot of times agency owners get caught up in their clients' goals and their clients' metrics. What ROAS do what they need to be at? What revenue level do they need to be at? And there's this level of paranoia as an agency owner that sometimes people have, which is, if my client's not performing, that means that I'm a shitty agency owner. Or if something's you know what I'm saying? There's just so much involved, and there's like this agency complex mindset that a lot of people have, which is really dangerous. So I spent that time outlining goals, mental goals for myself, of how I want to approach when I win, which I knew was coming. I said I was going to win. What I did was I totally rebranded the company. That's another thing as well. A lot of agencies, nothing against ClickFunnels and all that stuff. I love ClickFunnels. I think it's great, but it's so generic. I'm very into brand creative, and I'm sure you've seen our site. For me,
I'll pull it up. I'll screen share it here whilst you're talking.
Yeah, for me, branding is everything. So you know, I wanted to be that cool agency. You know, I wanted to show people.
Looking at the right one here?
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
I wanted to basically show people exactly, and I'm targeting exactly what my customer is through our site design. And this wasn't the site that we made then, but this is like our most recent iteration of it.
Sure.
But basically, you know, here you'll see some of the work and stuff.
Sure. I'll
But
go back into the work stuff here. Sorry, I don't want
no,
to have you talking.
no, but whatever. Basically, that's a site. Yeah, everyone could take a look at it later. But you know, for me, that was a big thing. So I said, you know, let me cater my brand to the clients that I want to attract.
Sure.
Because a lot of our clients are referrals, and a referral is probably the best lead you'll ever get. And I may as well, you know, shoot my shot with that. So I really spent those 30 days perfecting the back end system.
Yeah.
At this point, as a company, we have no SOPs. We have no project management software. We have nothing.
Wow. And I love that. Like, you know, everyone's got it so backwards. They think you need like all of this fancy shit, and you need Asana, and you need, what's the other project management software that everyone uses?
ClickUp.
Yeah,
No, well, at where I am today, I need it. If ClickUp wasn't around, I'd go out of business. You know what I'm saying? Like where we are today, we definitely need it.
Yeah.
Like these are things that we definitely need, and like we're only starting to write SOPs today.
Okay.
You know, so like
you scaled all the way up to a 7-figure run rate without any SOPs or software.
Zero SOPs. Zero.
Nothing fancy.
Cool. Nothing. Total waste of time.
How have you kept like operational integrity? Is it down to just hiring really talented people and being able to charge way more because of that, and just trusting them to do their jobs? Or like when it comes to managing media buyers or talent that you might employ to do stuff for clients, if there's no sort of concrete SOPs, and I'm asking because I genuinely want to know this, because we use SOPs for both of our businesses, how have you ensured that results stay the same? Because obviously your referrals are a manifestation of incredible service delivery and trust. How have you been able to ensure that incredible service delivery without them?
So to be 100% honest with you, we don't service 400 clients at a time.
Okay.
At any given moment, we'll service 20, 25. But they're high ticket type of clients. And with that said, at that point, I was able to really look at everything myself. You know, media buyer implemented work, I reviewed. Email campaigns are going out, I reviewed. And, you know, and while a lot of people wouldn't do that, for me, I felt like I needed to do that, because if you're going to run an agency, you need to know every single part of the business before you hire someone else. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So I needed to know exactly how Google AdWords work. And that was like that's like, to me, probably one of the most complex advertising platforms for someone who has no advertising background. So for me, I needed to really understand that. So, you know, these are all things that I really dove into. So at that point, yes, no SOPs, because I was a hawk, just looking at everything. Today, everything's process driven. Everything's task driven, to a point where, you know, there's only a few things I need to review. And when I do review them, it's like, it has to be at a high level of importance, without sounding like I'm Bill Gates. I'm not, but you know, it has to be at a high level of importance for me to really pay attention to it.
It needs to be a priority.
Yeah. So that's really, you know, what we, you know, and how we have grown up to this point. After that COVID passed, 30, 60 days later, revenue doubled.
Wow. And you attribute that doubling, like sort of uptake in revenue, to anything in particular you did? Any specific action?
One, I attribute it to no worry. If I was worried, I would not have been able to close.
You would have been paralyzed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been nervous, my back against the wall. And you know, I want to make money. I want the company to make money, but that's, you know, that's not the driver for me. So I was, I was never really motivated by that. I just want to build cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was that. And then also, to be honest, the times, right? COVID was a huge shift in e-commerce. A lot of people ran to e-com. And for a lot of people in our industry that we work with, which is, like streetwear, cosmetics, activewear, stuff like that, we were sort of like first choice within that industry for a lot of our clients. I don't know how. I really, if I told you the secret, I don't know how.
Yeah.
We don't have any referral programs in place. We don't do anything like that.
This is what I was going to ask, is it's like, is there some sort of weird and wacky referral process that you've got going on that like drives a lot of this growth? But
so it's not that. It's if you're my client and you just had a kid, right? I'll send you a box of baby outfits. Okay. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what we do. If I know something, like for example, the client, they lost a family member, relative, we'll go visit. We'll send them flowers. Like that's no one gives a shit anymore. People just care about sitting in their office and building an agency. But there's people. Business. Think about how passionate you are about your business. Your clients are just as equally passionate, and they want someone that loves them as much as they love themselves. And that's what we have to do as agency owners.
Yeah, it's like we do that with Imperium, where like I'll try and send happy birthday messages to everyone when it's their birthday, and I've got like now we've got like 100 clients, 160 clients. It's like doing that like every day. Like you don't want to delegate it or outsource it, and that's like
you gotta automate that. Yeah.
So then what we can sort of boil all of this success down to, and I could be sort of misunderstanding. So if I am, correct me by all means. Is if we look at your agency and what you've built and how quickly you've built it and how abnormal the process has been of doing that with no ads, no outreach, no referral program, no shiny objects, no, like, I'm assuming no insane offers either. Like, no, do you work on like a pay and results basis or guarantees or just no? So it's just all built on, it's all built on a complete unrivaled obsession for the client.
Yes.
So
that's all it is.
Let's talk about that for a second. So obviously this manifests in one way in terms of human to human endeavors, right? Where you're actually friends with your clients and you're taking care of them personally as well as from a business perspective. So talk to me a tiny bit more about how you do that, because obviously it's not something you can really SOP or build. I mean, you can sort of have some automations for it, but talk to me about your philosophy for taking care of your clients as people, and then we'll talk about taking care of them from an actual delivery standpoint.
So as people in general, just check-ins, how you doing? Send them a GIF from time to time. Make them laugh, all these different types of things. If sales are going bad, sometimes people feel the need to send a message like, oh, we need to dip back ad spend. I'll send like a picture of Stewie Griffin crying like, oh man, sales are shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's you have to interact with people and bring light to situations. And what I do, and the reason why we are successful, and I urge every single agency owner in the e-commerce space to be fully transparent with clients. A lot of agency owners say in 30 days, I'm going to get you a 3x ROAS. You and I both know that that's not always possible.
Yeah.
And just to speak on the clients we usually take on, we take on two types of clients. We take on a client who has zero sales, zero revenue, and they've never existed before. Okay. To scale a client of that nature in itself, just to even get them at a break-even return on ad spend level, it takes like 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
You cannot get them a 2x ROAS out of the first 30 days. It's impossible. The second type of client, is doing 10, 15, 20K a month. Cute. And we'll take them to 200, 250, 300. And even that takes a few months. So and also, by the way, just a side note, we have a cancel anytime policy. We don't do long-term policies at all.
The thing is 95% retention rate and no contracts either.
Like, we have a contract, just outlines what we do, but you could cancel. Yeah. So for me, it's, I get on a sales call. Listen, if you are not willing to commit to 4 to 5 months of pure crap, then don't work with us.
Okay.
And if we surprise them, great. If like in 2 months they pop off, I look like a hero. But if in 4 months they don't, but then the fifth month they do, which they usually always do, I still look like a hero, because then I was right in terms of how long it took them to get there, or how long it took them to reach that success. I mapped it out for them. So you always have to set the proper expectations. I know I went on a tangent and I totally forgot your other question, but that has to do with just the client, serving the client, and ensuring that you're transparent at all times.
Sure.
Like that offer is great, and saying like, yeah, we could get you here in 30 days. If not, you get your money back. Like, you'll lose sleep at night. And also, it's just, I don't know. I just didn't feel like that was, a viable route for us. So I think making your client your best friend is something that's important, not because you want money out of them, but because you want to love working with the people you work with. We've had the reason why there's that 5% in our 95% is because we didn't enjoy working with those people. So we let them go. So, that's important.
So when you talk about making your client your best friend, which I think is a really good takeaway from what you just mentioned there, how do you navigate it if things don't go to plan? So like you mentioned, you have a bad month of sales, or something goes wrong, or an account, like a business manager gets blocked. Like, how do you navigate from, hey, I'm one of your closest friends, to, okay, we've got a serious problem and you're paying us and it's not working? Like, how do you rely on the rapport you've built? How does that work?
So to be 100% honest with you, because we do multiple things for our clients, we're not locked in. So if Facebook gets kicked to the side for a minute and we need to figure out how to get around a ban, we have Google Ads picking up the slack.
I see. Okay.
If Google Ads is giving us an issue, we built out a phenomenal email marketing and SMS arm that can murder,
Yeah.
So we have all these variables, and because we have all those variables, they're not really losing. It's just a hiccup. So it's our job as an agency to share that there's a hiccup, and then also to be like, listen, we have all these other platforms that we built up for you, and this is why we did it. So omni-channel approach is huge in terms of retaining a client. And again, a lot of people may disagree. You want to offer that single service, you want to do that single thing, but there's also a bonus to the others. Yeah, there's also a bonus to the other side. And if you have the right processes, it could be frictionless. Like for us, email marketing, which is a really tough thing to do, there's copy, there's design, there's approvals, there's upload, there's scheduling, there's flows, there's 400 million things that have to happen on the email marketing side. But we've systemized it in our PM tool, which has taken me years to build out, to a point where it's just new client comes in, everyone gets assigned, process done, frictionless. You need to get to that level. So the reason why we can do that is
please finish. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was it.
So I think what I'm being able to sort of deduce here is that the majority of your success is attributed to how just fucking obsessed you are with the platform and the skill, and the reason you can have different services and processes without burning out, and the reason you can have a little bit more operational complexity than might be standard, is because you are just a master of these not to blow smoke at you, but because you're so like good at them. And you've actually because we see this a lot with e-commerce people, where they buy a 997 course from a guru. The guru says, don't worry about service delivery, just hire a media buyer from Pakistan for $300 a month and you can make a 50% markup on your clients. And then it all goes wrong. But you haven't done that. You've basically sat in a box for 3 years and just learned the ins and outs of every single piece of the puzzle. And the result of that is just retention that's so insane. So really the secret to actually growing to 7 figures without anything that revolves around getting clients is just being really fucking good at what you do.
10,000 hours. 10,000 hours. You ever hear the 10,000 hours? That's all it is. So that's something that's very important. And I've personally never bought a course. You're the first course I ever bought. Never bought a course in my life. I think courses, I think for me, that's what it is. And a lot of times people, even from a client perspective, because there are certain people who can't afford to pay for our retainers, ask us, do you have a course? Do you have this? We don't, I don't, that's just not the business I'm in. But again, for me right now, like you said, it's an obsession.
And
It's an obsession.
if you haven't bought courses, how have you learned these skills? Like, how have you learned email marketing and Facebook ads? Is it, and you mentioned you taught yourself to do Shopify liquid code, and you understand all the complexity that comes with Google AdWords. Obviously, there's a sort of element of learning on the job that comes with that from clients. But how would you keep such high retention levels and client satisfaction if you were figuring it out as you go along? Or was it because you were charging less? Like, how do you learn these skills?
Because we were charging less, I had more room for error.
Right. Okay.
And I also did a lot of stuff on the side in terms of my own testing. So I would open dummy Shopify accounts. I'd open dummy ad accounts. I'd watch videos on YouTube, which I don't do that often.
Except from me, eh?
And yeah, except for you.
I
And
mess with you.
and that was really it. Like it's funny because everyone has their skill sets, right? Certain people are really good at specific things. Like, for example, my wife's really good at school related items, right? She's studying to be a doctor, so she's like super laser focused on studying, and this is what she does. But for me, I care about cool things. And I define cool things as cool brands. My whole life, I was very into not material objects to boast and to show off or anything like that, but I was very into material things that make me feel a specific way. So I always wanted to know, how did Nike become Nike? How did all these brands become these brands? So I studied that nonstop. A lot of people look at Facebook ads like, oh, I'm drop ship a fidget spinner, but no, I want to sell the next best sneaker. I want to. So again, it's all about how you go into it and how you approach it.
Yeah, I like that. And so it seems to me like part of the reason that you've become so good at it is because you're not really focused on the outcome, i.e. the money.
Yeah.
Focused way more on developing the skill because, well, you want to develop the skill and build the brands, not to get paid. And you get paid as sort of result of
it's
that.
A bonus.
It's a bonus. If you could go back to Daniel 4 or 5 years ago with the failing sunglasses brand and look at that brand and look back now with the perspective you have.
Oh, I'd scale the shit out of that.
But what would you do? What would you differently? Like, where can you see it failing? Because you mentioned it was branded well, and that's why someone paid you that 1,500 to keep going.
Yeah.
But when you look back at the old brand, what do you think were the core mistakes that you made with that?
Operations. If someone places an order, what happens? That system was very broken. I had to. We were getting orders, but I had to literally pack boxes myself. I would come home at like 11:30 at night with like, I would spend the whole morning set like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. the whole day in the office. I would then drive to 2 hours to the warehouse. I would then go and pack these boxes, come home with like cuts in my hands, like 12 midnight. I'm like, fuck, so like in that time, I was miserable, but I would not be here
if it
weren't for that. So like, that's something that like, as a business owner, you always have to understand that like whichever point in the game you are, it's a game, right? Like there's always that next level. Right. And you never go backwards. It's impossible to go backwards, even when you feel like you have gone backwards. It's nearly impossible.
You can't go back in the past. Only to
go
to the future, yeah.
That's all it is. And for me, especially like, again, a person who I personally have struggled a lot with, let's say, things like mental health, and for me that's like a big thing.
Yeah.
I as a person with a high level of OCD, I'm not just saying the social media level of OCD.
Mm-hmm.
There's an obsession attached with that. It's the obsession to be fixated on something. And for me, the thing I fixate on is positive, and it's my business,
Yeah.
and it's that level of growth that I love. And that's also why, as an agency, in the future, we plan on allocating a certain amount of percentage to specific initiatives, and it's not a selling point. It's again, a lot of people are building agencies to have their MRR, their monthly revenue here or there,
Yeah.
but for me, it's like
for
a
financial
community.
freedom almost. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get to that point, you need to think about what else can I do from an impact perspective. Like, can I give? Can I help someone? Like, people who own agencies will call me all the time, and especially starting, and I'll give them my playbook. I'll say, here's 15 emails of people that just didn't work for us. They just couldn't afford it. Take them and run. Like, there's so many companies in the world.
Yeah, but people don't want to do the 10,000 hours.
Yeah,
People
they don't.
want it all for nothing. So I've still got millions of questions, but I'm aware
Yeah, ask away.
we don't have millions of minutes here. So we'll keep going for another 10 to 15 minutes if that's okay with you.
Just keep going. It's fine.
Okay, much appreciated. So like I've literally got like this sort of notepad here, just with
Yeah, don't
just
worry.
everything's jotted everywhere.
I cleared myself for a few, so you're good.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So I want to sort of just sort of go back to this whole the client side of things, because obviously the
Yep.
client obsession. We've talked about the personal perspective and also how you manage these personal relationships. You've talked about omni-channel and how that's really important. So we'll park that. But I want to sort of look at this from a principles perspective, because like you talked about transparency as one of the main principles. I'm a huge sort of fan of looking at massive companies, and this is no exception, right? Where you look at Amazon or Google and you'll find that they've got these principles that you can literally read. They even advertise them on their website, and their principles define all their decisions. So what I want to do here is look at your company from a principles perspective. We usually find that the company and the person have the same philosophy, and that's obviously they're two of the same. So besides transparency, what would you say are the other main principles that directly contribute towards your client success? You've talked about process being everything, which might be one, but talk me through the main principles and how you came to add them to the business.
Yeah. So a lot of times, let's talk about ad creative, for example.
Yeah.
Someone on our team will produce an ad creative, right? And we're pressed for time. It has to be out today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all right. We know it'll do good, but it's okay. That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
It needs to blow us away. So for me, if it doesn't have that blow us away factor, whether that be an email, whether that be an ad, whether that be a funnel approach, then it's not going out. So quality is everything. Don't always take the short route. So that's a huge principle in our company that, like, I really, really, really etch into everyone's brain. And if for a second I even feel that that's like, going to the side and, we're having an issue with production or whatever it may be, then I'll step into myself and I'll design creatives. I'll literally do that myself. So that's a huge principle for us, is if it doesn't give you that feeling that, like, wow, this is going to do great, then don't do it. Don't put it out. You're wasting client money.
Okay. That's awesome. So transparency, we'll call it the blow us away factor.
Yeah.
Aside from those two things, do you think there's anything else that sort of sits underneath the business?
Yeah. I would say a lot of times, especially as the owner, you want to know what's going on with each account.
Okay.
And it's really hard to know what's going on with each account when, you have a brand spending 100K here, you have the same brand spending 80K a month there. it's hard, and these are big numbers that you were working with.
Yeah.
So for us, we built out a process on the back end where all I have to do is log into one thing. I take a look at it and I can see everyone's return on ad spend in one shot.
Or just like that in a spreadsheet or?
No. So we use Databox.
Okay.
Databox is a great platform. We pull in all the values from Facebook, Instagram, Google, their spends, etc., Shopify sales, whatever it may be. And I just create a custom dashboard that shows me every day everyone's ROAS. And if something's off, I get in touch with whoever I need to get in touch with to fix it. And that is convenience. So, for me, I'm always looking to save time. And I'm always looking to optimize my time. So that's something that really helps. And that's a tip that I would actually advise everyone to do in the e-commerce space. Databox is a little expensive, but if you do it the right way, I think it's like $300 a month or something. But if you do it the right way, you can save so much time and you can really just get a good grip on your client results. A lot of times people lose sight of that. So
this is what I was going to ask, is if you've got 20 or 25 clients, that's still a sizable amount of clients to manage and to look after. And I was like, well, how on earth are you logging into like 20 different Facebook ad accounts and then 20 different Google ad accounts and then all these Klaviyo accounts? And it's just like, how on earth do you? So that's that.
Yeah. Databox is how we do it. And then we integrate it with our PM tool, which is ClickUp. And we embed it into ClickUp. So for example, if there's email marketing tasks, you just hit the top right and you could see the actual dash for the performance of the email marketing. Okay. So like, it's systemized as can be. And again, like I said, transparency and reporting sort of go together. The wow factor thing is really important. And then the last thing is how we structure our client relationships, which is really important. And that is, how often do we speak? What are we speaking about? And what to expect. So on the first of every month, we have a 45-minute recap strategy call. Okay. That happens automatic, right? First of every month, we have an automation trigger that goes out, sends them an email, hey, please book your call, whatever it may be. So the first week to week and a half of the month, we're talking.
With you specifically, you'll do that, or a member of the team will?
Me.
Cool.
I've yet to hand that off.
Okay.
That for me is like, that's something I probably have to do now.
Yeah.
But that for me is a difficult thing to let go of, because these are good friends and good relationships at this point. So clients going forward though don't really have me. So so that's that. And throughout the month, we have our just email communication channels and all that stuff. And now again, as we're systemizing, as we're building, as we're learning, we're starting to use Zapier more, Slack channels. You can't complicate it until it needs to become complicated. And now we're at the point where it has to become a little more complicated.
So important, because I talk to agency owners who are making they might be doing a couple grand a month, right? And then they're like, yes, I'm like, so what have you been doing for the last 6 months? And they're like, well, I've built out like an entire Slack with 15 different channels. I've built out SOPs for client reporting, and I've got an entire onboarding funnel sorted. I've got my payment gateway set up and my pay funnels is there, and I've got my funnels built, and I've got my personal brand done and my content done and my website done. And I'm like, well, why? What's the point in building out a value infrastructure systems if you haven't got clients to put them through? And it's a procrastination thing, because people are afraid of getting clients. Because
so we had 10 different onboarding processes that we've tested for the last 2.5 years. And now we have one.
What does that one look like? Oh, this is where it gets exciting.
But do you know what I'm saying? So to your point, a person saying, for sure, this onboarding process is going to work. Let me spend 6 weeks building that out.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest waste of time in the world, because you just built out something that the client does not like at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You got it from your perspective.
we tested manually, or I should say, I tested manually straight up 10 different ones, and I outlined them on like a flow chart. Our onboarding process varies, but right now it's literally frictionless because we use Zapier.
Okay.
So it's client fills out, we close a deal, PandaDoc, whatever. We use PandaDoc, integrates with Stripe, payment gets done. That triggers a Zapier automation, right? People use Infusionsoft. Is that another one? Infusionsoft, something like that. Zapier, whatever.
Fusionsoft's like, yeah, you can. I think
like the
Zapier's
same.
the main one for connecting.
Yeah. So that then triggers an automation in ClickUp, which is our PM tool.
Okay.
And what that does is we have a preset client template, which basically has around 100 different tasks that need to be accomplished. And the second the client pays, that folder gets created with their name in ClickUp, with the tasks, the due dates, the assignees. So that's done.
This is 100 tasks for the client.
Yeah, whether that be get this collateral, get this, do this, do this, do this, do that, start crafting copy, and it's all timed out. And it's all there. And simultaneously while that's happening, we have another Zap that sets up the client's folder in Google Drive with 10 subfolders. These are all Zaps. And then from there, they get zapped into our client evergreen newsletter, which is something that I think everyone should have. And then from there, they get to the kickoff call. So I'm only notified when the kickoff call has to come around, and that's it.
Okay. How do you structure the kickoff calls? Is that really just sort of like here's like what's happened and here's what's going to happen? Is that sort of how you?
So kickoff call can look at one or two things. First of all, there's one thing to note: when you're doing paid media stuff and email stuff, there's two different things, right? So if we're just talking about paid media, like Facebook ads and Google ads, certain clients will have ad accounts existing already. So you just pop in, you link those. But if the client doesn't have one, I'm sure you know this, it's the biggest bitch to set that up with them. And it's the biggest hassle to set that up with them. So we actually started charging for that.
Okay. That makes sense. So
because you're spending an hour and a half of your time opening up a client account. It's like, come on, man, like that takes time away from another client who's paying.
It's like they say in like those sort of New York ad agency days, like everything's billable. Like
everything is billable.
Yeah, everything's billable. So that's a really good look into the core things. And I think I've realized now, I came onto this little interviews just sort of intending, like, can we define like one real clear thing as to like why you've been able to do what you've done when nobody else I've ever talked to has ever done it before. And it's obviously comes down to these principles and being transparent and this sort of blow you away factor, but most importantly, how obsessed you are with learning the process and becoming really good at it. So one thing I wanted to touch on, and we'll call it a day after this one, because we're both busy and we can maybe have another call if a lot of people want. Guys, if you're watching this and you want Daniel to come back on the channel,
sure,
drop a comment, and maybe also if you've got any questions for Daniel, drop them in there and we can do it next time if that's okay with you, Daniel. Not to put you on the spot. One question that came to mind earlier on. So you mentioned you work with some clients that will start and they're doing nothing. They've got no money, no orders. So from a branding perspective and an acquisition perspective, obviously you can sort them out. What happens if they don't have operational integrity, or what happens if they are you 4 years ago packing orders with sliced up hands and stuff? Like if they haven't got that sort of back end operations, how do you deal with giving them the demand but them not being able to meet it, for example?
We wouldn't take them on to ensure it. So they would have to have some infrastructure.
Okay.
Because the thing I say is this: our thing is you have to have a minimum spend of, let's say, like $15K to start a month. If they're spending $2K in ads and our fee is more than that, then I can't justify my fee. Yeah. So if they're able to even afford starting $15K, then they have to have some form of operations on the back end already. So that's the answer to the question. Yeah, that's like, they have to have that.
Makes sense.
We've had scenarios where we've done so well they couldn't handle it. That's fine, but at least they had something to start with.
Yeah.
Like solopreneurs are not, that's really hard to work with a solopreneur, like a guy who's doing it all himself. It's tough.
Okay.
Not saying it's not doable, but like it's tough.
Yeah, it's significantly harder, and you want it to be, be easier.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I have learned an awful lot on this course.
Yeah.
Like a significant amount. So I'm really grateful for you and for you explaining how you operate this, because my background from an agency perspective is high volume, low ticket. Lots and lots of gyms, and once we had, like, I think the most we've ever had on board is like 64 or 65 done for you clients, and we have systems for that and we can maintain it. But it's interesting to see it from the perspective of a higher ticket referral driven business with a 95% retention rate. So I want to thank you, because this has been really useful.
No, for sure.
I'm sure for everybody else. And just based on, just to give everyone some context, when I said to you, I was like, hey, if you've got the time, would we mind doing this? And you were just like, yeah, I want to add as much value to people. It's been amazing. And I'd love to have you on here again at some point, because I think this has probably been helpful.
For sure, yeah. We may get a lot of questions, but
well, yeah. So everyone, if you want to ask Daniel a question through me, pop it in the comments below, and when Daniel and I can schedule another call in later on down the line, we can maybe answer some of those ones, and we'll go from there. Do you want me to, like, how can people connect with you? Do you want people to send you like a LinkedIn request or something, or like if there's someone in the e-com space with a brand that would want to work with you, how could they contact you? Don't give your email.
Yeah.
You get flooded.
You just go to classamedia.com and then just hit let's chat.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to get linked to either myself or someone else here. And then you could put in the notes, I want to speak to Daniel.
Cool. Anyone watching who has an e-com agency, first of all, don't go and do that and spam Daniel's thing like with questions.
Yeah. Don't. Or you could DM me on Instagram, DanMizNYC. DanMizNYC. You could just shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll be sure to answer.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Daniel. For anyone listening, watching, like the video, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff that you would usually know to do if you feel like someone's added value to you. Daniel, thank you so much, man. And I'll look forward to seeing you again at some point in the future. And also working with you with Imperium.
Yeah, pleasure. No, yeah, I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Take care. Talk soon.